Niemand dem Goyan bescheuern, baut man ja an, wenn ich nicht kennen sage ich dann. Und die ganze Baum, die schon keine Chinbishi. Wie das nächste, das nicht kann. Dann ich mal hier. Ich bin da und da. Ich baut man ja nicht. A mi ktižen gažen kana Nishnaabemdaa kat kushnu pane ma. Wadina kewab nungin jipa. Gibem kangi sage gan. Ango nishin. Ite benisan mi kamake ked nakkiyang. Ich kamake awat mam ki pamat sawat pane. Beni.
We haven't seen this in history before in our culture. We haven't lost our language before. We're new to this. Trying to discover it again or trying to, revitalize it again, we're, breaking the way for that. We have to do trial and error at a really fast pace. So I don't have the answers, but I have hope.
I'm gonna sing a song for our speakers, what they're doing for us. They're the most valuable people in our community right now with our language. I sing a song for them. I picked one of my favorites, an honor song. This is an honor song. And honoring for all the work he's done for us. That he'll continue to do. I know he should be retired by now, but he still come out and do this for us.
Our language literally went from a fluency, like people think that this happened hundreds of years ago, or we lost our language hundreds of years ago, when really, in reality, I was here born and my Goulais spoke fluent Nishnaabemwin, and then my mom lost it and now I don't have it. So this is just like 30 years, maybe 40 years.
How come I don't know this language, but it's my first language? How come this was never taught to me? Understanding our history, I understand why.
When I came out of residential school, I still understood what they're saying, but when I tried to say a word, I couldn't say it. I could say it in my mind, but my tongue couldn't do it. Although we were home every summer, like some kids stayed there forever till they were 18. They never came home. They were strangers. Like there's a lot of Nipissing people, I don't know how much, but many that never came back here. But they were born here. But they belong here, but they never came back.
I mean, I just love the language so much and I struggle with it, which is really weird because all we heard was that. All we heard was language around me.
I grew up in a fluent home. I didn't hear much English, and I was what you would call fluent as a young child.
And I was speaking a lot, or when I was younger, then I did have a language that my uncle Hubert told me that. He was always speaking to me, and my grandmother told me, I can't do that anymore because they want me to have a good life, so if I keep talking like that, my life can be good. Some English.
My grandmother at the time felt that if I continued to learn that way, I would not be successful in today's world. We do suffer the loss now of not having that language because it's a language right directly from the land. It's directly from the land. And it's the first language that Turtle Island ever heard.
Both my grandparents were speakers and my mother wasn't. So it skipped that generation. And for all the reasons that it did, and there's not just one reason, many of us have the same reason why it skipped that generation. I want to change that. I want to be the change in my children's life and in my grandchildren and great-grandchildren's life so that they can have it to carry as well.
There's nowhere else in the world you can go and get this language. You know, I can't go over to Europe and find this, you know. It's right here. Our teachers are just down the road.
We have very, very specific words for this land right here. And we have very specific stuff. And then the way we say things is specific here. Whew, dogi kudge, a little bit cold today.
Nishnaabemwin, it's more than just a language. I never knew I was missing something till I started learning Nishnaabemwin. It fills something that you never knew was missing.
It's a connection to who I am as a person. It's a connection to all of my relations, to my ancestors in the spirit world. It's connected to the plants in the forest. It's connected to the land where we came from.
It's the instruction manual on how everything around this lake works, like our dialect specifically. And as the dialects get more broader, I'll go as far as saying like the Great Lakes. Like our language explains the Great Lakes in an in-depth that no other language has, simply because nobody else has put in the time that we have as a Anishinaabe people around these lakes.
When you hear the name of a plant in the language, a part of it tells you what it does, or it tells you a signature of its doctrine. And when you hear like about an animal, it's speaking about what they do in their habitat. So it's the language directly from the land.
My favorite word in Nishnaabemwin is wabgwani, and it talks about the process of a flower blooming. It doesn't say like a flower, it's not just flower. It talks about the process and the struggle that flower has to go through. The light's gotta hit it for it to bloom, and nothing else could help that. It's so beautiful because we're not who we are unless we go through those things that's put in our path. Being an Anishinaabe and picking up the things that were left behind from our ancestors, who we are as a people is in our language. So if that is gone, then we're losing a big part.
Everybody is understanding that we need this back, that in order for us to be whole as our spirits, we need that part of our spirit back.
Our language is not a language that has dictionaries upon dictionaries. We don't have the resources to be able to retract it in any way. Like if one wanted to go and learn their language, our language is within our elders, the ones that still have it and are able and young enough to be able to have the energy to teach it to our teachers, to our children. And you know, we're just running time right now, like trying to see if we could do something to revitalize it without burning out our speakers.
A lot of that knowledge is, is right here, and, building a relationship with our grandmas and our grandpas in the community and our aunties and our uncles is so important because they're our books. That's who that's where we find our knowledge.
I didn't know English when I started school. No, just like you people, opposite. I don't know when I learned to speak English.
You gotta be careful what you say around people sometimes, because they'll make it happen. Both my parents were that kind of people. You always had to be careful what you said around them. Like my dad, I was like, Dad, I want to learn a language. Okay, come on. Right now? Yep. And we went across the road to his mom, to my grandma, and he said, Mom, he wants to learn a language. Talk to us in language. She just started talking the language right there. She only spoke to me all the time like that. It's really nice to hear that all the time. Our young people don't get to hear it anymore. But that's just right now. We could bring it back.
I want our young people to hear it like we used to hear it. I want people to be excited to learn it. We can't wait because our fluent speakers were getting on in years.
It's going to be very hard because all our kids are going to school to speak English and learn everything in English. And if they don't speak the language that well, that's how it gets gradually lost. I think in some sense, when you speak one language and there's a main language that everyone else speaks, that's the language you're going to go to, and gradually you forget your own. Unless you speak it at home all the time or you hear it all the time. I was fortunate that I came home and visited with my parents all the time when I was away, and they always spoke in the language. My dad always talked to us, and he was a big storyteller. When we sat down for any meals that we were having, our table was always like a map. The salt would be this island and this and that, and he'd always almost draw a picture for us on the table as we're eating.
I can speak my language at my family, my sisters and my brother, and my aunts and my uncles on both sides of the family. They always spoke Nishnaabemwin. Even now to this day when we meet, that's the language that we grew up with, so it's really natural that we start speaking that right away when we see each other.
The younger they are learning it, the more they're going to keep it, and they have to use it though. Because you might think, oh, I understand, I know my language. Try and say it after a while when you don't hear it for quite a long time. All of a sudden someone comes and speaks to you and you're kind of, set back and say, geez, what did he say or she said?
I used to go visit all my old aunts because everybody, they just spoke the language. They never spoke English. They just expected you're a young Nishnabemwin girl, you should know the language. But I could understand everything. So that's how I started talking, to be able to talk. And I know I'm saying it wrong. I'll start out good and then the second half, I can't say it the right way. But that's how I started.
Nishnaabemwin is vitally important to our identity as people. Since the introduction of the Indian Act in 1876, a lot of that has been decimated from our community. And so what we're doing as a government is trying to take what's left of our language and language speakers and bring them up to the forefront in creating an environment where we can once again have Nishnaabemwin front and center of our community and leading the way in our culture.
Because of the time and because of our speakers, the way that we're losing our speakers, you almost feel a little defeated in a way, because when one passes, you think of the knowledge that we didn't obtain from them before they left here, or that we started this journey too late. And then when Muriel passed, I knew that I couldn't quit.
First of all, she was a relative. She was a very close friend. We spent a lot of time together, even in the last while. And she was a comedian. She was a singer in a band. She taught my children and the children in Garden Village the language. One thing she was known for, she put a fire under their bum. They couldn't be lazy with their language, and she just kept. She was a force. She was a force.
Muriel Sawyer was a huge advocate for our language. She was our original language teacher, and she was my original language teacher as a young child.
Pretty well my whole career of teaching, she's been there, guiding me.
Muriel, being the powerhouse that she was, she herself was a fluent speaker. Not only a fluent speaker, but she was a writer, a reader of Nishnaabemwin, and the fact that she was a teacher. So she was the whole package, right, about talking about how to revitalize language, and she knew what we needed as a base to get where we are.
Her legacy is that we're sitting here talking about Nishnaabemwin right now. But her determination for our language is totally mind-blowing. She's up there probably saying, like, enough with the documentaries, let's get some language recorded now. Come on. Like, she's up there still fighting, so that's what I want to say.
My favorite word, given that my mom passed, is her name, Biidaajwan. The power of water, the force of water. Waves, the current in a river. Even in the winter, the water still flows under the ice. Biidaajwan.
I knew Muriel when she was a little girl. Even then, you could see like she was a leader.
She was the one that helped us through all this, eh? Because we can speak it, that one can speak it, that one can speak it. But to put it in the education, how it should be taught, that's where she helped us quite a bit. She would be coming in with lots of papers that had to be translated into our dialect here. She was the one that, you gotta do that now. But now we understand why.
When you first started, Sylvia, she says, I come here to learn too.
Yeah, I remember that.
I want to learn that too. Dick can, Don Chagino, right? You already know you. And she says she wanted to learn Zhishichigewin to write, but she never learned. As we were growing up, we never learned to read or write. So that was all. Now you can't just write any word down, they'll tell you what it is.
Yeah.
I remember going to Deshani at the school with some of the elders, and some of the things we did was find words for new things that Our grandmothers didn't have like computers and how do you say telephone? There's no words for that. So we'd work on making words. And how you make new words for languages, you describe it.
Tam gwasam goma pane Biidaajwan Katelynn go kwetstoek de Nishnaabemwin. Bitte Piten minim da kishlash kana Luigi and the young Katelynn and Nishnaabemwin go together to learn the language.
The one thing that was really important about what my mom was always trying to instill was always have those language warriors. Always have the next generation at least keep that language alive.
When I taught with her, there was 2 language teachers. And next thing you know, she had 7 or 8 young youth in our communities that were dedicated to the vision that Muriel had, along with a group of elders supporting those young ones to learn that language.
Muriel Bun, she was my kindergarten teacher and my Nishnaabemwin teacher right through to grade 8. She pushed me when I was lazy. She made it fun. A job came up. It was posted a few times and then finally the phone rang and she said, "Why haven't you applied for that yet?" And I said, "Well, I don't meet all of the criteria." And she said, "Oh, yes, you do. You better apply."
I kind of finished high school a little bit late, so I was like mid-semester. I was like, frick, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Muriel says, "Hey there's that teacher course up at Nipissing there, you better take it," she says. Okay, yep. I didn't want to let her down. So I was like, shit, I gotta do it.
I've been a language teacher now for 6 years, but I've been an active learner of my language for about 12 years now. And really it's because of her. I would often go to Nipissing as a college student and just take in on the classes, and she always welcomed me in. She never turned me away. She didn't matter, you know, whether you were part of the class or not. It was come on in, sit down, shut up and learn, you know.
This was part of her dream for us to be able to communicate to each other in our language, for our children to be able to voice their first sounds in our language.
Seeing her like passion and drive, like that's how you get things done. You have to love it like that to go for it. And then she built that in us, a lot of us, and a lot of her. That's what you see here in Nipissing, having some meetings there, looking around. Oh shit, there's like 10 teachers around here right now, Ojibwe teachers. And then more younger people talking about they want to be Ojibwe teachers. Freaking pretty awesome.
We're very grateful that we have our language warriors that are out there just learning Nishnaabemwin and carrying this language forward, because it takes a lot of time, a lot of hours, dedication in between jobs and working and school, then trying to learn a complex language that we don't have on top of it is very strenuous.
We have to still support our teachers today. They're giving of their language and while learning and creating resources. We need them to be able to find a place to go to bring up their language level. But they need that time between family, school.
And one thing I found when we were in the language committee and that is a lot of them are shy to say a word. They're so afraid they're going to say it wrong.
Personally, because I'm a second language learner, it's like an insecurity that I'm faced with when speaking with elders, or not having it be my first language and being a fluent speaker. You know, I strive to continue to learn to carry that language on.
People are afraid to speak it because that's a part of who we are now. It's our job to change that and to maneuver through the traumas that our people have been through.
It's critical that we hold these knowledge keepers in high regard, that knowledge has to be captured and shared, and we have to inspire others to keep on that vision that Muriel Bunn had in our community.
As a teacher, I think the struggle is it feels like a lot of pressure because we're trying to revitalize a language, and the importance of it is sometimes overwhelming.
At this point, it's a state of emergency, I would say. It was years ago, and it's even more so now. And now with COVID, it's spread us out even more.
It's kind of like we're in survival mode. So it's really hard to bring it forward when you're in survival mode.
It can be daunting at times where you almost feel like, should I be teaching this? Should I be doing this if I'm not a fluent speaker? But then you look around and you go, if I don't do it, then who else is going to do it, right? Who else is going to teach the language?
I guess we're faced with a fork in the road. The language was taken to us before, but it's still here. If we don't do anything now, we let it go.
It's balance in life. It completes you as a person, and it's part of that spirituality aspect of your life, right? When they talk about the medicine wheel and the 4 parts of your being, it really is a piece in its own. We really need to see the importance of that, you know, as a culture, as a community. And we have, and that's the great part, is as a community, we have seen that there is a need in this.
You know, just learning to be a teacher, you know, finding out who you are again, and then, you know, being a language learner on top of that is it kind of adds another layer. One of the things that with Muriel that she was so good at was she's been there. You know, she was there by herself. And she would always tell us language teachers, you know, you just get together and talk amongst yourselves, you know, share your resources, share your stuff that you're learning with each other, help each other. She would always say, because our kids are the ones who are gonna benefit from that. So that's a lot of the work that we do today is we're always sharing words with each other and, you know, sharing spellings, like, does this make sense to you? You know, like, who'd you hear this from? And, you know, we're always, it's nonstop. It's a nonstop process.
Our children, I think our teachers are doing a wonderful job with them, and almost shocking. Like, it's almost shocking to see and to hear them, like, oh, they know it. Walking down the road and seeing my nephew, oh, Nishna, and he says, Minwe ya. And it's just like, that's a different way. Everybody knows Nishin, that's good, I'm good. And Minwe ya is I'm doing really good. Like, and it's just kind of like hearing those different phrases coming out of those kids is like, wow. Like, I started my learning journey with Nishnaabemwin in grade 10, and I'm 32 now, and you know, they're doing really well.
I get to do it all day, so I get to practice whatever it is that I'm teaching them and just myself get better at it every day. So every class that I have, I grow along with the students.
You feel like you're giving them a new beginning almost, right? You're giving them their culture back a little bit at a time. It's just powerful. It's a powerful thing to be in a classroom, and even though you're starting from zero, it still feels like you're giving them something so important that might be a part of their identity that they were missing, right? And I think it's so important, and I see it in my students every day. They feel proud, you know, they can use it at powwow, and even if my students are not Anishinaabe, they still feel like they're learning an important piece of history.
I've heard some people say that they felt like a lost soul. I feel that, if we had our language from an early age and making those spiritual connections, that maybe they wouldn't feel so lost, that they'd always know that they have something to fall back upon to help encourage them and move forward in their life in a good way.
I'm hoping to see a solid foundation of learning our language in the next 10 years. We have recently passed the Anishinaabe Governance Agreement, which allows resources to flow and be directed and focused on language and culture. It gives us the authority to make the decisions on how that's going to look and to set our goals and really have some milestones that we want to achieve over the next 10 years.
The information services I tried to provide as a librarian was finding the culture of Nipissing and getting it out there and interviewing elders and creating little programs at the library that brought in our cultural knowledge holders and shared information about that really empowered us, like the 13 Moons governance system and about the clans and about how life was here before and how people lived. And I knew that if we start to go back to that, we'd find our health and our self again.
Very impressed with the way it's going. It's even more than I expected. Like, it's taught in the schools. Like, so much has changed for the better.
In 10 years, we have a lot of time. If we really, really focus and really do it, I think we could do it in a couple of years with the teachers we have, with the base we have, passing on to like the grammatical part and those things. That stuff kind of needs to be taught too. But the more important is the speaking, because I could tell you, if you want to see the speakers light up, try to sound as old as you can get, and you'll see them. You'll see their body language change, and they like that. So that focus of the sound is important too.
What makes me most proud is when I hear my daughters using it without us initiating the conversation, or hearing them playing off to the side, not knowing anyone's listening, and we hear them using the Nishnaabemwin words. And that feels so great, thinking like I am creating a difference, even if it's just a few words.
I want them to know who they are as Nishnaabe. I want them to be proud of that. There was a time when I was younger and I wasn't proud of myself because I was Nishnaabe. But now I am, and I hope that I could show that to them. And also too is let them know that I'm learning too, learning with them.
We're from this earth as much as a deer is from this earth, as much as a fish is from this earth. We are the environment, we are the land, just like a tree is, just like this rock is. Like we're from this, and we can't separate that. And that language really grounds us in that. It really shows us our relationship with the land.
This is so cool, man. It's our own freaking secret language. You don't got no language that talks about the land like ours does, man. Talks about all of it. Anytime I notice in my life when things were really got good for me is when I did a lot of work for myself. So I want to learn a language for me and to teach my kids.
I talk to my mom and my goatmiss and my grandma in the language. The learning of the language is important to me because my goatmiss speaks it.
Any little bit helps, any little bit of learning, any little bit of using our language is one step closer to revitalization.
Yeah, we don't all speak fluently, but if you know enough about one section, teach it as much as you can, because you'll learn something from someone. You could learn all the animals you want. Keep saying them as much as you can, because some kid's going to remember that. Oh, he said Makwa about 5,000 times. It's a joke. But next thing you know, that kid's saying Makwa.
It's important to me because of who we are and where we come from, to get back there and to be able to speak that with my children and my grandchildren one day. Just brings me joy just thinking about it.
Things happen over generations. Things take a lot of time. And I think, we have a good start. And if we continue on with our children and they continue on with their grandchildren and children, I think we will get there. And like they say, we need to think about the 7 generations to come. 7 generations before us got us here, and it's our turn to get the next 7 generations and pave the way for them. So I think we are doing good in the sense that we're still working on it. We're still trying to keep the language here for them. We just need to work a lot harder.
One good thing that happened to me along the way since I joined the language committee, which I am so glad I did now, because all this speaking and hearing and listening brings back the words that helps me to speak the Anishinaabe.
This language is important to us. So important, I think it might even decide where we go in life after, which direction we take.
Being Anishinaabe means a lot to me. It means that I'm connected to Mother Earth. It means that I'm connected to Spirit and Gajemnido, Creator, creation.
Nishnaabemwin means literally the sounds of the human beings. That's, and coming from the mouth specifically, that's what that Nishnaabemwin kind of breaks down to me. So it's what human beings are supposed to be speaking around here.
Oldest original language, they said, given to us by the Creator. That's hard to grasp in the mind, but knowing our stories and walking on this land it's pretty cool. I believe it now. I believe those things.
This last summer I had a little family fish fry. When you catch lots of fish, you have a fish fry, and that's just what we do here in Nipissing. I cooked all the fish and the fries and had it over the fire, and maybe it's just like a Nipissing thing. You get a nice fry pan, it's just like, whew, it just feels, you feel extra Nipissing or something, I don't know. Everybody was over, and my grandma got to eat first, and I remember she looked at me with a smile and she said, "Gek pi Nishnaabemdaa." That's what she said. "You're finally living the Anishinaabe way." And I was just like, it makes me a little bit emotional, but emotional proud, I thought to myself, our language is in our fishing, it's in our lake, our fish teach us that, our water teaches us that, and our hunting, the moose teach us those things, and the trees, they teach us those things.
Honoring all those people in the past who fought for us and stood up for us, but they weren't heard because the treaty came and all the steamrolling happened to them. I'd say it even tried to knock them down on many occasions. The loss of land, the loss of children, the loss of place, the loss of spirit. When we speak our language, we're giving voice to the people who fought for us and we're helping them up again. That's how I visualize it. And it's also picking us up at the same time and bringing them with us. That's how it feels. I got goosebumps just saying it, but That's what I envision. When we do this work together, we're telling them, use were heard. You were heard and he's still here and we're bringing you with us.
I went and asked Muriel Sawyerban, Geraldine, and my grandma. They said, hey, I don't know, I said, if I got you a ride to the casino, would you just talk the language? If I drove and you just talked? Oh yeah, they said. So we went for a trip to the casino and they talked the language. I got to hear stories about when my grandparents got married in the language. It's really cool to hear all these stories and there's a little bit of gossip in here. It was good. Got to hear how it all sounded.
Our language is such a beautiful language, and there's so many words that that kind of roll off the tongue, and some that are not so easy to pronounce. I'm not even going to attempt to say the word bicycle in our language.
The way I've learned it is it explains that it describes how you get on the bike and you turn the wheels or whatever. You have to say it fast, so you.
I remembered this word to describe how they dance. They should test poyashmok. Geek should test poyashmok, she says. And it was square dancing. And sometimes when they are swinging you around, your legs would fly up. But we had all these big skirts, like your skirt would whirl, like the man would put you right off your feet, like, so that she's kind of describing that their legs were apart, like, they're dancing like this, like.
Sometimes we just go, we don't want to laugh at them when they say something because it sounds so funny.
Peru! Kjære halvpurganer, så at mig den ind i bosen, man bare skidning min endom, gående der kendon, den Zhishichigewin var det Peru. Men der skal vi have got to all edges, it might Duffy, where she can run 90,000 we give not, stona.
You can one good in Nishnaabemwin.
Cheers, Gary, now walk the Jesus. Me or them kid out where the Prince Edward Island where they doing doggone of there, up to give them off, all the wrong where they are, we not.
Not start, so.
Give more go. Give more one. Come in and off. I appear Harperish. Me glad 90,000. But I shrink our notch. Told me go kill the Prince Edward Island in Gaza. And a Green Gables. I'm doing the walk, man. så går jag ta mig, ta Guinness-mod. Gott så var jag i sättna. Nej. Vi går in och har bröst och en jackegi pajad med ett perum. Tvära så var det en gipiss. Jag gång i min gossige Biidaajwan med det pigane Gone tar on with it, 20 Aztecs med en Mayans ging det av man. Gilli Shango Quinge. Jag går wenscht upp kvärsgan med det gimigen med en tangbi. Whisky gimingo. Gimingo är det. Ska det vara båda? Ska det vara båda? Här som nabo går det. Squawking som nabo blir gaden i kväll. Det går inte till just kväll. You ain't see a harperish. We got to the Tioga Peru. Ikcem na to dagos, to the god kushnan. Going on game boss. See where did he pie on? Swear. What how did G-Mon and he pie up his way the Amazon River range. Chizzy big chip nap go shock where the dog eats one go, Snakes on a plane, me go big the walk them on. We got me boys, young my boss drink snakes on a plane, snakes on the ground and all. I'm gonna get checked one go with it. I'm gonna small way, you give a give away, this. You had to yell it and die on. Don't go down so I go to Peru. Yeah, me and Tommy Heck, you got to put it con the kid. You ain't gonna go get 20,000 quid go, men marsh gunning, no? Yeah. Well, ni var mitten gå och gissna då var det dumping. Det kan jag inte puncha gata. Kan jag inte Namagar den got his metro. Not ska gå där we are stays and the question när vi kan då mitt sina we are ni. Vad går kvar vi må. Ja. Koko ska det sen det. Koko ja, ska det. Need on a ham, huh? Zisse, go get go at the ham, Zisse. Go get a cock-a-doodle-doo, cock-a-doodle-doo. Mona, do I win, huh? Need a tuck on the kid. Cock-a-doodle-doo. No bestseller, see now, ja. What, eh? No bestseller. No bestseller. På något kväll, Kevin, vi vet du i kväll, de går bak kväll, det sitter vi gamla. Vad är dina pampis jämka? Du är inte kväll någon, du nejdes, vad det? Jag sitter vi gamla. Twana var en donbag i Zhishichigewin squabby, ja. Well, där står sin Nishnaabemwin pig. You're square, ja.
Som skulle gå då ni steppe. Jag är inte skjuts.
Ka. Mista